If you would like to turn on the captions, you should be able to find the CC icon in your Zoom toolbar. Thank you for attending today's webinar. Today's webinar is Bibliographic Input Standards, a review of local practices and tips to maintain the standards. My name is Rachel Fisher. I'm the Member Services Specialist, and I specialize in technical services. I know that many of you are already familiar with CCS Bibliographic Input Standards and our local cataloging practices already, but I did see some new names on the attendee list. Regardless of your experience at a CCS member library, I think that there is something to learn from today's webinar. There are so many local practices that it can be hard to remember them on a daily basis. So the objective for today is to provide an overview of the bibliographic input standards and local cataloging practices so you can consistently utilize these standards with your daily workflows. Feel comfortable training new and existing staff on local practices, and/or feel more comfortable with participating in CAM and SCRAP discussions about these issues. There's a lot to cover today, and I don't have time to review every single practice, nor would you really want me to. That would be really boring. But I am going to begin with reviewing some of the basics so you have an understanding of the difference between national and local practices, important resources, and how CCS manages local practices and decision making. I will review how you can use the Catalogers Wiki to find information on our local practices, because we don't expect you to memorize everything. You will find it a valuable resource to refer to. I will also provide you with tips for maintaining the local practices. As a CCS member library, we are concerned with the quality of the data in our database. We want our patrons to be able to find the items and place holds on items easily and make their experience at the library as user-friendly as possible. In order to do this, the cataloging staff follow both national and local practices. National practices are practices that apply to all libraries in the country. These include OCLC's bibliographic formats and standards, the Library of Congress Program for Cooperative Cataloging Policy Statements, or LCPCCPS, Resource Description and Access, or RDA. And some examples of these national standards include how the MARC record is formatted, punctuation, how data is entered into a MARC record, and the authority records, or the authorized form of a name or title. Local practices are on the Catalogers Wiki. The Catalogers Wiki does not repeat national practices that are easily found on other websites. So examples of some of our local practices include when to use a new record, how the volume should be formatted in the item record, and how series are handled. Each library is responsible for following both the local and national practices. The wiki does specify an order of precedence, so this includes the Catalogers Wiki, which is our local practices, so this is the most important. Then OCLC's Bibliographic Formats and Standards, the LCPCC Policy Statements, and RDA. So this slide provides some links to the CCS resources and the national practices that I just mentioned. The original RDA toolkit will be removed on May 12th, 2027, and it will be moved to an ALA archive, and then the official RDA will be replacing the original RDA toolkit. So throughout these slides, I do have links to resources and wiki pages, and I'll be sending this out to you after the webinar. CCS regularly updates the Catalogers Wiki. The Scrap Advisory Group regularly reviews the wiki to recommend changes. Changes made to clarify the wiki or provide additional details do not need any further approval. CCS staff update the text on the wiki when SCRAP recommends making those type of changes. SCRAP, as well as CAM, can make recommendations to update the policies depending on the type of change. Policies get approved by technical groups or the executive committee. So the CAM technical group, or cataloging and metadata management technical group, can approve any changes to the wiki. The acquisitions technical group can recommend and make changes to approve of the changes made to the on-order records that acquisitions staff use. And also, depending on the type of change, the change may need to be approved by the Database Management Committee or the Executive Committee. If you see anything that needs to be clarified or you have questions or recommendations for the wiki, please email us at help@ccslib.org. We are always interested in improving the wiki and making any necessary changes that we need. Does anyone have any questions about what I covered so far? So feel free to type it in the chat or unmute yourself. Okay, I'm going to bring up the browser. 1 second. So I'm now just going to do a brief review of how to find the wiki and how to use it. Besides the links in the slide, there are 2 links on the CCS webpage that you can use to navigate to the wiki. So if you scroll down below the picture, you can click on the link for the Catalogers Wiki. It does not require that you log in to use it, so it's visible to the public. Under the Member Tools A to Z page, this is in the Member Tools drop-down menu, you will find Member Tools A to Z. This is taking a long time to load. 1 second. Oh, it's having problems right now. Oh, there it came up. Right there on the top row, there is a link to the Catalogers Wiki. So I've already brought up the Catalogers Wiki. So this is our cataloging manual for local practices. So in this purpose section, you can see the links to the national practices that I just mentioned in the order of their precedence. And below that, we have links to the most important pages on the wiki. So the Bibliographic Input Standards page is the most important. This provides a general overview of the local practices, some for specific formats, and then a table. So I'm going to go through that in a bit. Below that heading, there's a link to the specific sections on that page. And the next one that I highly recommend is this local practices summary link that provides a summary of key local practices that differ from OCLC standards. When you do use the search bar here, it will bring up search suggestions based on the name of the page. So I just typed in E, and you can see that there are a number of pages that begin with E. A great way to get to know the wiki is checking out the All Categories page. This will take you to the list of categories. Each page has more than one category that it's in. So you can click on them and check out the different pages for the types of material that you work with. There's also a list of all of the pages if you click on the All Pages button on the left-hand side. One other useful page is this Recent Decisions page. You can access it from the left-hand side. I tried to add in the recent decisions that the technical groups and advisory groups make so that you can stay on top of any new pages and new changes that have been added. And these tend to be just the updates where a technical group has voted on a motion. Are there any questions about what I've covered so far? All right, I'm going to go back to the slides 1 second. So next I'm going to review the key local practices for on-order records. So there are a couple of sections of the Catalogers Wiki that are specific to on-order records. Throughout the wiki, we call these PDRs or preliminary data records as well. So it's important for both the acquisitions and cataloging staff to understand these standards. The acquisition technical group can vote on motions regarding the on-order records. On-order records can be brief records that come from a vendor. However, some libraries import them from OCLC or need to enter a record manually when no other record exists. In our on-order records, we do require an 099 tag to identify that it's an on-order record. So this can have the phrases preliminary data record or vendor preliminary data record in it. We also require the basic bibliographic data, like the standard publisher numbers, such as ISBN or UPC, the creator names or author names, and the title are in the record. If possible, we prefer that the title is in all capital letters, but if you're importing an on-order record from OCLC, we don't require that you do that. It's easy for the vendors to make that change, though, for your records. We also require a correct type of material or format in the bibliographic record. This is important for how it displays in the catalog online for both the facets and how the roll-ups work in BiblioCore. We do recommend that you add a 970 tag to your vendor records because this allows you to streamline the purchase order creation process and it's much more efficient. But that one is just recommended, it's not required. And depending on the type of material, we also recommend format notes such as those that would designate that it's a large print edition or specific video game formats. You may also put the video or video game format in parentheses in the 245 tag, such as Xbox 360 on the example on the slide. So I'll cover some more on-order record issues in a bit, but one of the most recent changes that we made was to add volume numbers to the on-order item records, and I'll go through that when I get to volume number issues soon. So this slide has some links to the wiki pages for information on on-order records. So from the wiki, you can search for the terms PDR and preliminary data to find them. If you are on the main page, you can also navigate to a category for them by clicking on the All Categories link on the left-hand side. If you scroll down to the bottom, this last one, preliminary data records, this will lead you to all of the pages that mention on-order records. Are there any questions about on-order records? Feel free to type in the chat if you have any questions or unmute yourself. So now I'm going to review the key local practices for final records or fully cataloged records. There's going to be a lot of information here on these records. So the Bibliographic Input Standards page that I pulled up is really the backbone of the CCS cataloging practices. So it provides general information on requirements for fully cataloged bibliographic records, as well as some of the information that I already reviewed on the on-order records. So an accurate description of the material is required for fully cataloged records and should include enough information to distinguish one item from a similar item so that patrons can find the record they are looking for. All records need to have required access points to facilitate access for patrons. So these include the creator headings that have been verified in the authority file, title headings and series headings. Series headings need to be traced in an 800 or 830 tag, and there needs to be at least one subject heading. Subject headings can be from the Library of Congress subject headings or genre headings. We also allow a number of other vocabularies that I'll go over soon. We also recommend that records have a table of contents information and summary notes. There are specific formats that do require the enhanced tables of contents. So this would have subfields for like the title and author in those. So I'll go in more depth soon about that. So there are obviously some things that you know would need to be there, like the standard numbers, like ISBN, UPC, publisher, and so forth. The correct format or type of material, target audience codes, and literary form codes are also important to include for facets in the catalog for BiblioCore. So there's a number of special formats that are on the Bibliographic Input Standards page. Then they have some specific instructions on those formats throughout the wiki in addition to what's on that page. So some examples of what you'll see on that page are things like allowing paperbacks and hardcovers to use the same record. Large print records should have a large print edition statement, and graphic novels that are multi-volume series but do not have individual titles should be cataloged as a multi-volume set record. So I don't want to go in depth into every single thing on the page, so that's just a few examples. So a chart on the Bibliographic Input Standards wiki page lists all required and recommend fields for the fully cataloged bibliographic records. This chart includes the column for the Mark 21 tag, the descriptive name of the tag, RDA numbers, and the degree to which the field is required. The last column has a rationale and comments on the specific requirements. There's also some links to specific pages. So the table documents instances where CCS practice varies from OCLC input standards. The column called core includes the degree to which a field is required. The data may be omitted if the information is not present on the item and is not readily ascertainable. However, there are going to be a number of changes that I'll be making to this table soon for the switch to the official RDA. Things like RDA numbers won't exist anymore, and we're going to need to change that core column because RDA core is not exactly the same as it used to be anymore. But I am going to review what it currently says because we'll still be using this until about mid-May. The core column includes both RDA core, CCS core, and CCS recommended. So core indicates that the data element must be present in the catalog record if the information is present on the item being cataloged or is easily discoverable. So it may be omitted if the information is not present on the item and is not readily ascertainable. RDA core indicates that the information is required by RDA or the official RDA at this point. CCS core indicates that the Information is required by CCS, even though it is not required by RDA. CCS recommended indicates that the data element is optional, but should be present in the record if it is not too difficult to discover and add. So if a data element is not mentioned, it is not core and is therefore considered optional. Optional elements that are already present in a record can be retained, but should be verified for accuracy whenever possible. So optional data already present in a record should not be deleted unless there are specific instructions to do so as part of our local practices. And for any original records, OCLC guidelines do need to be applied. I'm going to go back to the main page here. So clicking on this link for the heading Bibliographic Input Standards page will take you to the page that I just reviewed. And you can see here we've got some general information on the top. The requirements for all records are next. So here we have a number of requirements for specific formats that link to more details on their pages. But this is not comprehensive of all of our special formats on all of our pages. So you'll need to search for additional pages if you don't see it on this page. So you can then see that we've got a chart here that's fairly long. It's pretty comprehensive. And I think it works well as a checklist to go through to make sure everything is in your records. Are there any questions about what I've covered so far? If I go too fast and start talking too fast, let me know. I might talk too fast if I'm looking at my slides. Hopefully I'm not talking too fast, but do let me know if I need to slow down and review something again. Now I'm going to review some of the more important practices in greater detail. There are several codes in the fixed fields that are important for the facets and bibliocore groupings. These are the target audience, literary form, and the type of material codes. So the target audience and literary form are in the 008 tag. The local practices for these two codes have just changed. So both of these are required when applicable. However, any value can be used. Previously, we restricted the values to specific ones due to how the Power Pack displayed them in facets. With BiblioCore, they have mapped the values to the terms that we would like to see, so we don't need to restrict the usage of the codes. The bibliographic records type of material is also important to both the facets and the groupings, so this comes from a combination of the fixed fields. So for the Power Pack, the bibliographic records type of material controls the format and icon. In BiblioCore, the type of material, or TOM, is also used as a grouping category. So formats and icons are also assigned in BiblioCore like the pack. So it's important to use the correct fixed field codes for the format. If you find a format that looks wrong in BiblioCore, it may be because the fixed fields need to be corrected. So on this slide, I've included links to the wiki pages on them, and they'll have additional links on those pages to a document that explains what the correct fixed field codes are for the format that you want. So this slide highlights a selected amount of fields as an example for requirements for variable fields. And I'm just going to review them. So some of them that are important to us include deleting ISBNs for formats not represented by the records. So for music, a 1XX field for the principal performer, such as the name of the band, needs to be included in records for sound recordings or scores of music by a specific musical group. although it is common practice to create separate 250 fields for additional addition statements. Both the PAC and BiblioCore display only the first one in the brief display on the results page, so it's important to record multiple addition statements in one field separated by a comma. Video recording records need to include country or production in the 257 field, country of production in the 257 field. The contents and summary should be included for certain material types. For some types of material, we require that the 505 is enhanced with subfields, so we have a list of those on a specific page in the wiki. Award notes should be included in the 586 field of the award winners for the specific awards in the Catalogers Wiki. So those are listed on a page for the awards that should be in the 556 field. Video game records need to have a platform included in the 753 field. And for on-order records, acquisition staff have the option to put that same platform from the 753 field in parentheses in the 245 field. This helps you to identify which is the correct line item to receive in the purchase order. So it can be hard to tell the difference if you're ordering the same title for multiple formats. Series headings do need to be added to the 8XX fields. That's usually the 800 and 830 field. And I will show you some more information about that and how you can make sure the series is correct in a second. We also require that you delete URLs in the 856 field for cover images, excerpts, and table of contents. However, we are probably going to add some exceptions to the 856 tag to accommodate images of local items since BiblioCore does allow this. So we will discuss that at the next Scrap Advisory Group meeting. The Catalogers Wiki has several pages on subject and genre headings that you should be aware of. While we allow many vocabularies, including local headings, there are a number of other subject headings that you will find in OCLC records that we don't allow. So any headings that are not in the list should be deleted from the records. So we allow Library of Congress subject headings, the children's headings, and Library of Congress genre form thesaurus, that's LCGFT. We also allow Homosaurus, OLAC genre vocabulary, and the local headings on the local headings page. For non-English language vocabularies, we do allow several Spanish language controlled vocabularies. And we also allow the Polish language subject headings from National Library of Poland. So you'd be able to find these in Polish records and copy those 650s into the English language records for your Polish materials. An important local practice is the topic of when to create a new record. So these guidelines are format specific. While many libraries create new records if the length of a publication is different or the year is different, but the standard numbers are the same. CCS has standards that differ from OCLC standards in order to limit the amount of duplicate records in the database. So for those that are new to a CCS member library, this will probably be different for you. For example, if for a book, you can see the example on the slide, if the difference in publication date is 1 year or less, and the pagination is 10 pages or less, or the height is a difference in size of 2 centimeters or less, you can still use the same record. You don't need a separate record. This helps to keep our numbers of bibliographic records in the database down significantly. Many additional format-specific wiki pages are included to document these standards as well. But if you have any doubts about whether you should use a new record or not, feel free to email the CATS listserv. We do see emails about this issue and whether a new record is needed or not. Don't be afraid to ask everyone else about their opinions. So this is one thing that it's harder for me to answer. So you don't necessarily need to submit a question to the help desk about it because I don't have a copy of these items. So it's easier for the other library that has the copy to find it and answer your questions about when a new record is needed or not. So I highly recommend just emailing the CATS listserv. Deciding whether to catalog a series as multiple records or as a single record is also important to the consortium to decrease the amount of duplicate records in the database. So I have been getting a lot of complaints lately about records that were not linked to a multi-volume set record that should be. Um, when it's coming from a new library, they've got a lot of deduplication to do. So many libraries are still working on the deduplication. So it is one reason why you might see some records not linked to the multi-volume sets. But it's important to regularly review this and check this when you have any questions about whether something should be on a multi-volume set record or a monographic record. So this provides just a general overview of the requirements, but we do have some more details on these on the catalogers wiki page that's linked to on the slide. We'd use a multi-volume set record for this series if each part is numbered but does not have its own volume title. The content of each part is sequential and cannot easily be understood on its own. Or each part is numbered and all of the parts taken together form a single unit when complete. It's kind of a mouthful. So you would use multiple records for the series, like one for each volume, if the works are published in discrete parts that can be purchased separately. There is a significant difference in the responsible persons or organizations between parts, requiring different authorized access points, or there is a significant difference in the scope between parts requiring different subject access points. And each part can be standalone or would require a different access point or addition statement. So that's a lot to go through. I highly recommend reviewing that page after the webinar because there's a lot of different conditions here. So if you have any doubts about whether you should use a new record or not, or should use a multi-volume set record, feel free to email the CATS listserv and ask everyone for their opinion. The CATS listserv is very helpful on this topic, so they regularly discuss that for new series that come out. One of the most important local practices that regularly comes up as an issue that needs to be corrected is how volumes or issues appear when a bibliographic record is a multi-volume set record. This affects both multi-volume sets and periodicals that are linked to serial holdings records. So having matching volumes or issue designations is integral to filling holds for patrons. In the image, you can see that there are two different versions for version 1 through 3. So placing a hold on the version 1-2-3 will not allow items with version 1-3 to fill the hold. So this could cause a long wait for that one item that has volume 1-2-3. So examples of what Polaris considers matching volumes are on the slide. So you can see here that case does not matter, but what matters is the abbreviation used and the punctuation, as well as if there's a space between them. So we do require that there's a space between the period and the one or the number. So there's a link to both the page for periodicals and multi-volume sets on the slide. There's a lot of text that I pasted on the slide for everyone's information. I'm not going to read through everything because that would be very long, but I am going to just cover some important points. Because it is important for placing holds, I just want to emphasize some guidelines. Volume fields of item records should only be used with the multi-volume set records. So if you want to add a volume to a monographic record, you will need to use a suffix field in the item record because putting it in the volume field could also cause problems with placing holds. The abbreviations that should be used for volumes are on the wiki page that's linked to on the slide. I'm not going to read through all of this, but I also want to emphasize that it's important to match the other libraries' volume numbers. So you should try to conform to the pattern of existing volumes on the same bibliographic record. This includes other libraries' records. If you see that a library is doing something differently than you think they should, you can contact them to discuss the situation. The wiki also has guidelines for when to use set and when to not use it in the volume. So if all libraries are circulating the same set and they all have set, you don't actually need to have set in the volume field. So this is only necessary when some libraries use it and some do not. So if you have any questions about how the volume should be formatted in your records and if they are formatted correctly, we actually have a report that we can run to identify if there's any mismatched volume formats in your item records compared to everyone else's records. So feel free to submit a help desk ticket if you want some help with that. So in 2025, the Acquisitions Technical Group passed a motion for a new requirement for items linked to multi-volume set records. Staff are required to add a volume number to the on-order item record at the time it is ordered if it is linked to a multi-volume set and the number is identifiable on the vendor's website or bibliographic record. However, staff aren't required to research it if the information isn't clearly available. They should try to match the format of the volume numbers on other item records if available. If a previous format can't be discerned, they should add something anyway. Staff can correct it when the item arrives and when they're cataloging the final record. So the requirement on the wiki does not specify which staff will perform these tasks, so that's up to the library to decide. It's also important to note that if staff do need to correct the volume number, the holds will also need to be corrected. So this is done by transferring the hold to the same bib record that it's on and then selecting the correct volume. So when it comes to series, how the title is formatted is also important to BiblioCore's grouped display, indexing, and providing access to materials. So for many series that use monographic records, there are separate titles for each volume or point. So in this example, you can see that the on-order record for the book Fight or Flight is not rolling up with the ebook. And this is because the series title and volume number are in the 245 field. And we'd really like to see those rolling up properly. That's really the benefit of having BiblioCore. So not only has it been a problem with rollups in BiblioCore, but it also can improve access for patrons and help selectors identify which volumes are missing if all CCS libraries follow the same practices. For many series that use monograph records, there is a title for an individual volume or part. So it's important to put that part of the title in the 245, but the series title in the 490. The series title does need to be traced in the 8XX tag, which is usually 800 or 830. So we've had requests from selectors to identify if they are missing a volume in their collection from a series. So this can only be done if the local practice for tracing all series is followed and we can use the series headings properly to identify the series they have in the collection. So we do want to avoid having the series title in the 245 for numerous reasons, unless it is a case when it actually is supposed to be in the 245 tag. So these include things like television or movie series, where the series title is the title of the show. These can have the subfield N for a season number or subfield P, sometimes for parts of movies. There are also cases when a volume is cataloged separately but doesn't have a part title. So this can happen for anthologies. There's some more examples on the wiki that you can refer to for these additional cases. So I want to do a brief demonstration on how to identify what the correct series title is and how to import the authority records if you don't see it. So when you are cataloging something and you're not sure if the series is correct or what the authorized form is, let's say it's just in a 490, you can search our authority records, whether it's in LEAP or the client, by using the Find tool. So I'm just going to do a demonstration in LEAP today. So in the first drop-down menu, the database drop-down menu, you can search our authority records by clicking on the first one, authority record. The second one will search OCLC. So we're going to choose authority record. And I'm going to search for Geronimo Stilton. And we've got a number of records that come up for different Geronimo Stilton series. So you can open up the authority record, and in the Mark view, the series name will be either in a 130 or 100. So in your bibliographic record, this would need to be placed in the 800 or 830. The 642 tag will have the format in the subfield A for the volume. You need to follow this specific format for the volume in the subfield V of the 800 or 830. If you scroll through it, you may see some additional notes. For this one, we have a local note, so I chose this one as an example. In the 667 tag, you will see this note says that CCS will still catalog this as a series, even though Library of Congress doesn't. So I highly recommend looking for specific notes so that you can make sure that this is a series that we need to trace, or should just be a note in a 500 field. You can also take a look at other books in the series. If you click on Bibliographic Records, you can see a full list of everything that's in the series that we have, and you can click on it to navigate to a bibliographic record. So if you do not see an authority record for a series already in the database, you have the ability to search in OCLC to see if one exists and import it. So you can do this by clicking on Authority Record Remote Databases. So in the qualifier drop-down menu, not all of these headings will work when searching for OCLC. So if you're searching for an author name, you would use personal name. If you're searching for a title, you would use name. So to select the database, you would click on this little icon that looks like a cylinder, and then click on OCLC CCS Authorities. If you do not see this in the list, but want to have access to it, submit a help desk so that I can add it to your permissions for your database. So I'll just search for Geronimo Stilton. And it brings up a number of records. Just like importing a bibliographic record, you can open it and save it to save the record. And if you do not see it in OCLC, please submit a help desk ticket because CCS staff can create new series records for you. Are there any questions about what I've covered so far? If I've gone too fast, please let me know and I can repeat something or slow down. All right, so I'm going to move on. So on the Catalogers Wiki, there are numerous pages for special formats. So I can't take the time to review every single one, but it's fairly easy to find the format that you catalog by searching on the wiki for the format or navigating to it from a category. We regularly add new pages for the new formats that libraries buy. So we just added one for storage cards and storage card players. These include Tonybox, Yodos, and Story Dream Machines. Several libraries have started to add Wazoodles to the collection. So we just added that page too. That's a Play Away Wazoodles. I'm also planning on working on a draft for a page on AI soon. So that's something that Scrap will be discussing during the year. So I do have several tips that will help you to maintain some of the practices, but not all of our local practices. This should help you with the majority of them. So getting to know our local practices may seem very daunting. It's between all of the national and local practices, there's a lot of information to learn for new staff. So on this slide, I've provided some tips for how to start to familiarize yourself with the local practices or how to help your new staff learn the new practices. So first, I recommend reviewing our online course, the Local Cataloging Practices online course. It will acquaint you with how to use the wiki and some important practices. Next, I've included a list of some of the more important pages that you need to familiarize yourself with first. These include pages that provide overall summaries of local practices, information on the format for the fixed fields, call number, and cataloging series. One of the most important pages is when to use a new record. So if you're coming from a standalone library, this will be different to you. Because we want to limit the number of records in the database, we have different policies than you are used to. After reviewing these pages, practice searching for topics related to the genres or types of material that you catalog. John LaValle at Des Plaines created a local practice macro for us to use with OCLC Connection. It's very easy to install and learn to use. So this macro will make it easier to consistently follow the CCS local practices. With just a couple of clicks, it will delete tags such as unapproved subject headings, add important tags like large type in the 340 and bilingual books in 655, and a whole lot more. There's a full list of what it does on the wiki. There are links on this slide for how to install macros. The page on the local practices macro, a page that has a macro for enhancing the contents note in the 505. That one's really useful because I know it can be really annoying to put in all of those subfields if you have really long contents notes. So I highly recommend this one. And there's a number of other macros that you can try if you want to. So I'm going to do a brief demonstration of how to install the macro and how to use it in OCLC Connection. So 1 second. I'm going to search for the word macro. And then click on Local Practices Macro. So on this page, you can see a full list of everything it deletes, what it adds, what it replaces, and it also will have a message that pops up when a record contains an untraced series or when it's a parallel record. There are also instructions on this page for installing the macro. There are 2 different files for the macro. You will need to use the one that corresponds with the version of connection that you have. So if you have version 2.63, you would use the one for 2.63. If you've updated to 3.1, you would use this one for 3.1. So if you click on it, it will take you to a file that you can download. And now I need to switch screens that I'm sharing. 1 second. Okay, so I've downloaded that macro folder to downloads. And you can just right click on it and click on extract all to extract it so it unzips the file. So you'll need to copy this to the macro folder for OCLC. So depending on the version you have, I'm going to press that copy on it. So depending on the version you'll have, you'll click on Windows. You'll find it either in Program Files, x86, or Program Files. It depends on how it's been installed. So you'll want to search for both of them, and you'll go through the directories to find OCLC, connection, program, then macros, and paste the ccs.mbk file in this folder. So after that, it is installed and you can use it. So I'm going to open up OCLC Connection and demonstrate how to use it. So I've got a file in my local save file, or a record in my local save file that I'm going to use. This is a French video. So if I scroll down, you can see we do have some homo headings. We can keep those. Oh, this is the one that it's saved after I was playing around with it. I'm going to bring this up again from OCLC so I can get the one with the French subject headings in it. 1 second. Okay, so if we scroll down, we can see that it's got some headings that we don't want here. So here's some French headings from Canada, fast headings. It's going to keep the homoet headings because we want to keep those, some more fast headings and some more French headings down at the bottom. So to run the macro, you would open up the tools, click on macros, and then manage. So you'll see the CCS macros macro book here with a lot of macros, but you only need to press one of them and select one of them. So you would select the one called export and then click on run. So you can see that it's flashing while it's doing its thing. It's still running. When it stops flashing, it will be done. Okay, it's done. So if I scroll down here, you can now see that it's removed some junk tags. It hasn't removed all of the 856 tags here, but we can remove those if we want to. We don't necessarily need those because we do require certain 856s to be deleted. But you can see that we've got only the headings left that we want, and it's probably done some other things here as well. So from here, you would just export the record to import it. Are there any questions so far about what I've covered? I'm going to switch screens again, 1 second. So there are many local practices, and we understand that it can be difficult to remember them and consistently apply them. So I've recommended using resources that we already have to create a checklist. There are many ways to import records. I know that some of you prefer to use the Find tool to import records from OCLC instead of working with Connection and using the local practices macro. If that's the case, I recommend using the list of tasks that the macro performs as a checklist. You can use the page for the local practices macro to review each one or create a separate document for yourself as the checklist. The charts on the Bibliographic Input Standards page and local practices summary page are also great ways to create a checklist to make sure you haven't left out any tags. There are a number of reports that can be used to help identify errors with some local practices that I reviewed today. The cataloging report guidelines page lists many reports, how you can run the report, and the frequency that you should run it. Some of the reports on this page include things like volumes and item records, PDRs or on order records with available items. So these are records that haven't been fully cataloged yet. Suspicious toms or type of materials, item record settings, and that's a typo, mismatched large print records. You can also use Simply Reports to identify some cataloging errors. There's some configurations on the CCS website. So I'm going to switch to the CCS website again. So you can find this reports page by going to the How To drop-down menu, clicking on Cataloging. This will take some time to load, 1 second. So if you scroll down to Reports, you can find the Cataloging Reports Guidelines under Simply Reports. There's a page for identifying errors in cataloging records with Simply Reports. So on this page, there's a very useful chart. It's got the name of the report, the frequency, a description of how it's used, the location of where you'll find the report, actions to take with the report, and the priority level. So you can see that the locations here, if it says Find Tool Saved SQL Query, this will be in both the client or Leap in the Find tool. If you select the mode for SQL queries, you'll find the list of saved reports or saved SQL queries. When you see a link for reports.ccslib.org, this is web reports, and then you'll find the report in the section after that, the Bib item management section. And you'll also see some here where it describes simply reports. So you do an item list report for this one for items with no price. So if I go down some more, I'm just going to use, let's see, and I do an example of one. So I'll do this example of has no volume that others do. And so you can see we've got two saved SQL queries, has no volume in your record, but other libraries have the volume. And there's has volume, but others don't. That means your library has a volume, but other libraries do not. So you would want to remove the volume. This is in the item records find tool in both the Leap and the client. We also have a way to download an Excel file. So in web reports, reports.ccslib.org, There's one for this called Bibs with and without volumes attached, so you can download an Excel file if you'd prefer to use that. So I'm going to open up Leap again. And run the SQL query as an example. So in the first drop-down menu, the database drop-down menu, I'm going to select item record. The second one has the mode, and I would select SQL search. And then the next drop-down menu is for the saved SQL queries. So I'm going to do the one has no volume, but others do. To edit it, so it's specific to your library, you would click on this downward facing arrow. So there's only 2 lines you need to edit. Down at the bottom, you'll see assigned branch ID in the last 2 rows. So the number in parentheses is for the library branch, and you will need to edit it for your branch. So I don't mean to pick on any library here. I'm just going to use one that I know is still working on deduplication because they're a new library and might have some. And then you would click on the search icon to run the query. And from here, you can see that there are 25 that only need to be looked at. It's not too bad of a number. It looks like they're doing a good job on deduplicating because it's still a pretty low number. Are there any questions about what I've covered so far? All right, well, if there's no questions, feel free to take some time to review all of this information. Oh, I do have a question.
There is one question, Rachel. How far back do dates go on the recent decisions list? And is there an archive of all decisions made?
That is a good question. Let's see. To go back to the wiki. Let's see. So the oldest one here goes back to 2017 on this page. I may have left out a few. I had planned to go back and look through the archives to see if there's anything missing between 2023 and 2025, because there's a gap here where nothing seems to be added. So I need to look at that. And we do have an archive of our minutes. So for the meetings that were held from the time we started using our new website, you can find the minutes by going to the specific calendar item on the website. So under meetings, you click on technical and advisory group, click on the name of a group, and then past meetings. So if you scroll to a specific date, you should be able to find looks like a minutes are missing on that one, but you should be able to find links for agendas and minutes from a meeting, as well as the packet and the recording. For anything that happened before we were using this website, we do have our own files that's like an archive in SharePoint, and we can look something up for you if you have any questions about it. Are there any other questions? Okay, great. Um, There are no more questions. On the slide, there's a QR code for our evaluation. We are always interested in improving our training offerings at CCS. So please do fill it out and let us know what you thought of today's webinar, as well as if you have any other suggestions for webinars you'd like for us to have in the future. We're always open to new ideas. So after today's webinar, we'll be sending everyone out a link to the recording and the slides. If you have any questions, please do email me and let me know. Have a great day, everyone.